Hi, everyone. I'm Joey Reese. Welcome to the Practice Center, where we talk about all things
mindfulness, forgiveness, and attitudinal healing.
I'm here with Loki today, and I'm just wanting to have her explain to you who she is, the essence of who Loki is. Who are you, Loki?
I am the god of mischief. Was born and raised over here on Hawaii Island. I'm older than I feel. I don't know what to say.
That's so perfect. Me too.
I have a 11-year-old daughter. Her name is Rania. I'm a realtor. I've been a realtor since 2019. I also started my mindful forgiveness journey in 2019. I'm made up of the plantation workers, ethnicities that came here to Hawaii. So I'm Hawaiian Chinese, Filipino, and Caucasian. Grandmother moved to Kona, or were raised later on in their life. They were also in America previously, but so I've been on Hawaii Island my whole life. I'm a cultural practitioner. I practice hula. I've been working on my Hawaiian language for the last year and a half. And I also have my daughter in a Hawaiian immersion school because I believe our culture, any culture that is indigenous to a land, even though I'm made up of so many different ethnicities, living in Hawaii and practicing in the culture and learning our culture is really important to me. Being able to share that and grow alongside my daughter, learning as well, because when I grew up, we didn't, that was just the birth of the cultural Hawaiian Renaissance. So being able to have those opportunities now is really great and amazing.
So you have some insights into being a mixed person who also is Hawaiian. There's a lot of folks that can claim similar things. Yes. And a lot of folks who have not leaned into their cultural practices. Was there a time that you weren't practicing, and then now, even when you speak about it, you're speaking about it like really calmly and very centered and with like this, it's not, the pride isn't the right word, but there is kind of this essence that says, yeah, I'm home, when you were talking about it just now. So do you have anything to say to folks who have not leaned into cultural practices, what they might gain from it, or any message around that?
Growing up in Hawaii Island, I always found pride in my Hawaiian heritage, but it was really kind of mixed, because some people are like, well, I'm half Hawaiian and I'm 3/4 Hawaiian, and I'm better than you. It's kind of what comes out of that kind of dialogue. For a long time, I was confused because I am mixed, what to identify with. And honestly, I identify with all of my ethnicities because that is what makes me who I am. And I embrace it all. And it also comes with a place of knowing where you're from. A lot of people don't like to. They're like, why does it matter what my ethnicity is? Why does it matter that I'm just a white guy, or I'm just a white chick, or why does it matter that I'm from Poland, or why does it matter that I'm Irish? Well, it matters in my brain, maybe not everybody else's, because it gives you a sense of place, where you're from, where your roots are. Knowing your roots, I mean, it could be painful, but I also think it's very enlightening. I think it's just so important to know your roots. I mean, I wouldn't say it's racism. It's like, oh, wow, you're Irish. Do you know more about that? Yes. Tell me more. Share with me. I want to know. Do you keep any of your cultural practices? Same questions that you've asked me, and how is it important to you? How does it fill your life? And so for me, choosing back to the original question of identifying as Hawaiian, it just kind of came naturally to me. But later on in life, early, it was hard. Am I Chinese? How do I celebrate my Chinese ancestry? I'm Puerto Rican. How do I celebrate my Puerto Rican ancestry? And so being able to combine all of that and be who the person I am with all of these ethnicities inside of me, I think it makes each one of us special and brings all of that
humanity
to the
almost.
place. Yes, it's just like in you, and you're able to, and whether you identify as Puerto Rican or Hawaiian or Chinese or whatever, I mean, that's the family you're brought up in. And so the family I was brought up in really cultivated that Hawaiian ancestry. And so being able to share that, instill that in my daughter in her school, and being able to bring that into my life is growing, and it hurts as well. Like it's I just learned this about Hawaiian, something in Hawaii or something in my family, and it hurts me. And then I'm like, okay, so how do we use this to help me grow? So I read this book. It's called Mark Wolin. It's about intergenerational trauma. Oh my gosh. It from, my grandma, for me, it would be from my grandma, my mom, and then into me. And then from Rania, it'll be from my mom, me, and then her. Usually depends on if the generations end up doing the same things over and over and over again. Right. And so I think the biggest key for me is to educate her and be as honest as I can about my life and my choices. And then also I have a really, really hard time in Native culture, you have to respect your elders. Mm-hmm. And so that is a really tough thing for me, because I really don't respect my elders, specifically because I've only had women elder figures in my life. And I think that they are all weak. So I have a hard time honoring that. Yeah. And I think my sisters are the strength that I find. And so I incorporate that and family into educating and nurturing my daughter and my life.
Because intergenerational trauma is a felt sense of a separation from safety, dignity, and belonging, right? And so that felt sense, how does it live out in you? Because if we can't identify that, even if we know in the back of our head, but when we're talking about it, if we can't articulate, like, what does it actually feel like, look like, smell like? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? What am I doing or not doing around that before we get to fixing it for the next, the fixing it for, so how we pass it on, we don't really know. Like, how did it get passed on to you from your elders, your mom, your grandma, your aunties? How did it get into you? And what are you doing about it is kind of what I'm interested in, because I don't think we talk about that enough, especially around people of color, especially around women, because we're taught to like, no, get over that and fix it for the next generation or take care of the next people. Yeah. So can you just stop for a moment and just articulate it in your own words? How did it get into you? What do you see?
How did it get into me?
Yeah, what do you see? What did you grow up with? What did you embody?
Anger, definitely anger. So like in my past MF workshops that I've done, I've worked on my partner, myself, and then I attempted working on my parents. And that was difficult for me because I had this false belief. I realized that from the book, but that they loved me and that they tried to do the best for me. My mom and dad are drug addicts, and my mom committed suicide, and my dad is still here with us, but he's pissed at me. He hasn't talked to me or my daughter in a couple years. And he always chooses his partners over his family. He was adopted. My dad's adopted. And so the rejection and the anger, I think that he harbors, he plays out in his life and has affected me. And then the stuff with my mom, she was sexually abused. She did drugs, and then ultimately she made her choice to end her life. And so our family is highly sexualized on my mom's side. I think all of that in my life or in their life has transposed over to me, less willing to be open and vulnerable. I look at all of that, and some people say that I want to do better for my kids or give them what I never had. For me, I want her to, because sometimes they get what they never had, but they don't know why. So what I try to explain to her in age appropriateness the things that have happened in the past, just to educate her and help me too at the same time. I think.
Two things are coming to mind. You just finished the statement about yourself ending with "it's kept me guarded" and not willing to open up. And yet here you are just sharing some really hard stuff about your family and what you've witnessed and what you've experienced. So I'm just curious about why you're able to do that right now.
Because you asked me.
People ask each other lots of things every day, and we walk around talking about fine, I'm fine. And here you are. So I'm wondering what allows you to speak up now. What's happened for you that you are willing to answer me? I ask a lot of questions that people don't answer.
With the reading I did this year, my sister tells me, Loki, why do you read all of those books for fun? She's like, she's getting her PhD, and she's like, I read all freaking day, and I don't know how you can sit there and read these books for fun. I'm like, well, they are fun. And
learning about yourself is fun, right?
Yeah, and then I can just rent the book from the library. I don't need to get a PhD. Mark Bolan's book, It Didn't Start With You. And then the space that you provide. And I just, and then this realization just happened recently. So like, speaking of my sister, we have different varying outlook, because she's been in psychology since she graduated. She went to school, and so she's been in that work for a long time. For me, everything is kind of new. I don't know if I would have appreciated it as much if I learned it back in the day. But on the same hand, I might be further along in my healing. But then I look, I compare myself, which I shouldn't, but I compare our language when we talk about certain things, and maybe our mindsets. And then I think, even though it's taken me longer or different amount of time in a different time frame, that we're kind of in the same place, even though she's been in it for a long time.
So you really see your growth. So
Yeah.
Awesome. It's so great. And it's part of that growth and creating that space within you, not to have to hold on so tightly for survival, that space that's created that allows you to then be vulnerable or to be curious out loud. So I definitely see that growth in you. The second image that comes to mind is that there's a meme that I've seen recently, and it's that one of Spider-Man who's holding back the train full of people before it falls off, right? And there's a little kid walking across the street. So he's holding back the train or the bus or whatever. and then somebody has labeled it intergenerational trauma or your past trauma, and you're the Spider-Man, and then the child has headphones on and just walking, oblivious, just walking, right? Not realizing what you've done to save them. And I think the thoughts that I've been thinking about, which you articulated that you don't want to happen, is that we do all this heroic work, right? And imagine the strength or the feat or the focus that it takes to hold that bus back. Yeah. And so you might be grumpy and grinding and working so hard. The kid doesn't know. All they see is, why are you so grumpy and grinding and working so hard? Right. And what you said is, I want her to know why. So you're saying, look, I'm holding back a bus. The bus is filled with nonsense, and so she can see why you're straining so hard. So you just cleared something for me, because I think I've been grinding in silence for a long time, or hinting to, I'm working so hard for you, but not articulating what has happened, not sharing those stories, because I too was like shamed and holding on really tight. So I love that. So now when I see that, I'm going to see your face, and also talking to Rania, going, look at what's in the bus. All right. This is me working really hard so that you don't have to do this. How beautiful. And that's what I would love to see for so many of us, mothers, parents. Yeah.
And then not as a guilt trip, right? Because a lot of the time we, you don't know, or, you don't know what I've been through, or but how can they know? That's really important to me, because a lot of the times as a kid, we're often told that, and I don't know, I don't like that as a kid, because I think their minds are so big and wide that they do know, and that's why we do the age appropriateness. I believe I contacted you in 2019, and we started in January of 2020 for mindful forgiveness. And I actually was looking for you for a gift for my partner.
Yes, I remember that.
That was the initial reason why I had contacted you. And then you're like, no, you can't do that.
I can't be a present for somebody. People will reject
no. That. And basically that's what you said. You're like, no, they have to want it. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll do it. What's really interesting, talking almost 2 years later, I think that I was just full of myself. I thought, like, looking back now until then, I was like, I'm the shit and I'm perfect and nothing is wrong with me. I know what my problems are and I'm working on it. And Joey's just going to come over here and hang out, and we're just going to shoot the shit and talk stories. But, from then until now, oh my gosh, it's been such an amazing, amazing personal journey.
You said America, when they're coming from America. And, a lot of us here will know that Hawaii was annexed as the 50th state in 1959. Yeah. And so can you say why you are making that distinction? You say Hawaii Island, Hawaii, and you also say America, as if we're not a part of those states. And I want to just have your point of view around that.
This is new to me. I would say within this last year, because of my work, I've been more vocal about that. Even when I speak to my clients.
That makes me so proud. I just don't know. Yeah, I'm proud. Okay, keep going.
And it is because Hawaii is an illegal state. Technically, it's so sad, but I mean, technically, we're not part of America, and just the lies and the betrayal on our Hawaiian monarchy. I want people to know right off the bat that, and I guess kind of as a what is that word where you're being aggressive but you're not really, passive aggressive type of way.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I'm going to go to the mainland, and I think, well, that's not my mainland. Hawaii is my mainland, and Hawaii is its own mainland.
Right. All of that is what I'm seeing in your face. All of that is what adds to the heartache.
Yes.
So it's that unspoken weight. So when I think about, think about the way that people talk about adoption. Oh, you're so lucky, you're blessed, better than being aborted, better. I mean, all of the horrific things. So when I really was in this work, I was able to then at one point articulate, it's hard to walk around and articulate all of your losses, all of the goddamn time when everybody just wants to talk about all the positive things. Look at how amazing Hawaii is. Look at how amazing your life is. No, I lost language, family, culture, food, the smell of all of the things that your family's lost. I'm holding
Oh my
that.
God.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is so true. That really, that makes my heart hurt.
Yeah. So that's part of the losses that we're all living with. Yeah. So I think it's flippant on the other side when they go, God, just get over it. And it's like, we are getting over it because one, here we are surviving and doing the best we can for our kids and our families and our own healing while we're carrying the weight of all of that has been lost to us. That is freaking heroic. Yeah. And also it can be crushing. And so that's when we enter this healing work, right? Because it is crushing to walk around with that weight and not have a place to let it out, not have other people go, I understand, right? Because we've been told to get over it for so long, right? So this work of mindfulness, forgiveness, and attitudinal healing work to me is letting some of that pressure out and finding others that we can nod and go, I see you, I feel you. So can you speak a little bit about how this work has informed your personal life for sure, but maybe your work life or what you've noticed in yourself or anything that you want to talk about in terms of the healing work you've taken on? And here, when we say healing, I mean restoring ourselves to wholeness, restoring ourselves to dignity, restoring ourselves to a sense of safety in our bodies.
There's some sores or owies inside of you that it's going to be there forever. It doesn't ever heal. For me, it's the process, the mindful forgiveness process, the attitudinal healing. Going through both of those, I'm able to be okay with not answering people's questions if I don't feel like it at that moment. I've been okay being able to set boundaries and being okay when I let somebody get past that boundary or let myself get past that boundary. Having fierce self-compassion has been, I think, a two-sided coin for me because I'm like, okay, you did this, but that's okay, Loki. But then you're like, is it really okay? Or are you giving yourself excuses that it's okay? And so being able to decipher it as being like, no, Loki, that wasn't okay. You don't be like, yes, okay, Loki, because you need to do something about that. And so being in that space where like, okay, be compassionate, but then really seeing, is that right for me to be compassionate? Is this a moment for me to learn more or grow more? Or is it really okay? That has been huge for me, and being able to take some time and not be so hard on myself, and being proud of myself for my reaching my goals and making little accomplishments and sharing. I really found this year that being able to share, even though people didn't want to hear all of the awesome things that I learned, just like stuffed it down their throat. I think that was one of the key highlights to my year this year, was being able to share what I learned and being confident and grateful for all that I've learned and the people in my life that has given that gift to me.
So at what point did you go from, I have my shit together, I know everything, we're just going to be hanging out and chatting, to, okay, I really have to do some internal work? Where was that shift?
Okay, so in 2020, I was like fully immersed in the mindful forgiveness process, like I took a shitload of classes, extra classes, workshop, and oh my gosh, I burnt myself out. And so I was over it. I'm like, F this. I'm just gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna figure it out. I was still in that space where I just felt so overwhelmed with all of the stuff that I had, all of the information that I had gained. And so I'm like, how am I gonna put this into practice? Starting in 2021 is where it was a shift from learning to applying, because at the end of 2021, 2020, I did my first class with you, my workshop. And so, and then I did like one by myself for a catch up. I think I did two of those as catch ups with the person. And oh my gosh, that actually probably was the tipping point for me, because I'm like a absorber. I think as a healer we all kind of do that. I only did like two little alone ones, and then for the rest we did it all together. But that was really heavy on me, starting in 2020 where I was like thought I was the shit, and then coming all the way to the end of 2020 where I was like, wow, this shit is real. And then it's heavy. I would say at the end of 2020, when I did that class, it was that turning point where I was like, okay, I need to put a different kind of work in. I can't just keep going to these classes. I know that there's something else happening in my psyche, in my heart, in my hurt. There's something else. And so immerse myself in actively trying to do it in my own life, being able to learn differently and observe people around me, notice my mistakes or my triumphs, my personal goals, which wasn't really laid out, but actually I did. I think I wrote down like what my personal inside of myself goals were, and I think I accomplished most of them. So that's super cool.
So the slow realization or the layered realization, I think is important to point out in this work, because the work that you did previously, which is kind of collect information, there's so many of us out here who just collect knowledge. I know that. And I keep saying, it doesn't matter what you know. It only matters what you're willing to practice and apply to your life, right? Yeah. There's a lot of people who know all the things, and yet they're miserable. So that opening up of that realization window is really key, I think. So I don't know, can I say I'm so proud of you for leaning in, because that when you realize, God, this is hard, it's so easy to opt out, because we have this deep groove of the way that we've been doing it and we've been able to survive. So to continue to survive, and we know people like that, and they have lots of regrets on their deathbeds, right? They just kind of muscle through and then regret. So what the work that I see us doing is, no, we want to live well right now, and we're willing to like put in the work, like at a gym, right? You can't get muscles if you don't go into the gym and keep working out, even if it's hard. So I think that's really important. So if you could pass on knowledge for somebody who isn't even aware that, who currently thinks that they're the shit, if you could pass on an invitation or pass on some awareness that you gained or an encouragement, what would you say to that person who's currently thinking, it's too heavy and I'm the shit?
First of all, you're not the shit. And there's a lot of shit that there is to learn out there. Nobody's journey is the same. Mm-hmm. And taking time to figure out what your journey is the work. Be in the journey that you're in, and constantly asking yourself that question, is this going to matter to me? Am I making those right choices? and then continuing to move forward. And when you get hit back, or when something you find out hits you back, being able to find that hurt and grow from it. I think it's major.
So your process has been, you did one-on-one, you did group, and you've been reading tons. And then now you're practicing.
Taking my own time, I really leaned into reading. That was a big thing for me. I've always wanted to be an avid reader. And actually that was one of my goals. Probably since I was 20, to read more, and to read things that will inspire me or make me sad, make me cry, think, oh, wow, I can learn from it. Reading has really been a big, humongous addition to my life, and a big growth in me. And so if anything, if you wanted to read, then do that. But I wouldn't have started that unless I did mindful forgiveness. So.
But it's so interesting. It's a goal that you had since your 20s, you said, and now you're able to do it. Like, that is not an explicit outcome that we would have ever said, right? Do you have goals from your 20s that's just been dangling? Well, through this program, you can achieve it. Like, we would never say something like that, but how cool that you see that as a benefit that has enhanced your life. That's awesome. Yeah, really cool.
So a part of my goals for maybe it was 2020 and then spilled over to 2021 was to stop drinking so much and stop swearing at my kid, because that is something that I do when I get really angry. Because talking about gentleness, most of the time I'm a pretty cool mom, but I think it's from my trauma in my life where I feel like, oh my God, what the hell is happening? And so I get really upset. And so I would say within a year, I'll probably blow up like that, maybe 4 times a year. And so this year coming into 2021, I maybe only did it 3 times a year instead of 4. So I think for me, that is a big deal. She doesn't like it when I drink. And so a conscious choice in my brain to not get drunk, to when I leave get together or gathering, I'm not drunk. And so when making that decision to do that, I would say probably was harder than I anticipated, because it took me so long. Because I would probably say it was from 2020, so a year and a half, making conscious decisions in my life in order to provide a home where she and I are able to grow together, learn together. If I fail, I'm able to grow from that failure, or learn from that failure, and putting myself as more as an example as a parent rather than a queen, where I'm like, I'm the queen, you do what I say, and rather not as a friend, but more as a respected adult. That's where my relationship with my daughter, that's what I want. And that's what I'm trying to cultivate in the relationship that I have with her.
You just described for me the very delicate work of intergenerational healing. What you just described, your personal work, that is how we create a future generation that is more whole, that is more healthy. So thanks for that. You're a beautiful human. I really have enjoyed our time together. Is there any final words that you want to share?
I want to say thank you very much for, well, thank me, I guess, for finding you. And then thank you for, thank you for being there and having the spaces that you've provided for so many people. I am very grateful to you. I would say there's been a point in my growing and learning process where I was like, freaking Joey, oh my gosh, you think she knows it all? And then I'm like, oh no, wait, I think I know it all. and and I would say a lot of my frustrations were finding someone in you that was able to call me out of my shit and really hold that space for me personally to work through it. And even when I think I'm doing it, it's like, no, that's, you are there, but this is where we need to be. And just that, that mindset of thinking and growing from that. And so I really appreciate you, and I thank you and all of the facilitators that we have out there that have grown from knowing you and Judith and just everything. I'm really grateful for it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Say bye. Bye.